Hello everyone. So, a few weeks ago, I made a video on Encanto, specifically the gifts that the family is given and the problems those gifts would cause. While making that video, I thought, who was the worst character in the movie? And, spoiler warning, it's not Abuela. Abuela goes from being an overbearing, controlling woman to realizing that her pain and fear of losing her home is the very cause for what's breaking apart what matters most. We see what caused Abuela to be the way she is. She apologizes to her children and grandchildren and is forgiven. Could this have been fleshed out more? Absolutely. There was definitely the potential to make the story more impactful with deeper meaning, but for what the movie is, Abuela's character is fine. So, who is the worst character? At first, I thought it was Luisa. She has an entire song about shouldering all the burdens for the family and being its protector. But then she sends Mirabel off to find out about Bruno's vision and warning her little sister that their uncle's tower could be dangerous. This is a contradiction for Luisa's character. In her song, Luisa is not only talking about how bearing the burdens is weighing her down, but that no matter her fear, she will do what needs to be done to keep her family safe. But sure, little sis, go off on this quest. Be careful, you could get hurt. I can't go with you, I have too many chores. However, there is a character worse than Luisa, and that is Dolores. Throughout the movie, Dolores' magical gift is inconsistent, making her a tool for the writers and thus seeming to be a horrible person because she has no agency. Let's first tackle Dolores' inconsistent super hearing. When Dolores is introduced in the opening song, Mirabel says she can hear singing from a mile away, and Dolores later reveals she could hear Luisa's eye twitching. So we get a good idea at her range and how sensitive her hearing is. And yet, despite having this super hearing, Dolores doesn't react like she hears what's going on during the majority of the film. Dolores is shocked when Mirabel steps out to walk next to Antonio when he goes to receive his gift, despite the fact that she should have been able to hear Antonio tell Mirabel that he needs her. Not only should she have been able to hear this, but she also should have heard Mirabel comforting Antonio, and known how close these two were since Antonio shared the nursery with Mirabel. So she should not have looked shocked that Antonio wants Mirabel to walk with him, nor should she be surprised that Mirabel does so to support Antonio. Dolores never hears Casita breaking apart. The only time this makes sense is during the party for Antonio in his new room. The volume is too loud for Dolores to hear what's going on outside the room. But the house has been cracking apart for years, and Dolores has no knowledge of hearing any of it when Mirabel asks her for help. She may have been able to hear Luisa's eye twitching all night, but she could not hear Abuela talking to the memory of her deceased husband, despite both the eye twitching and Abuela talking happening the same night. Nor does Dolores hear Mirabel talking to Casita on wanting to save the miracle, and therefore needing to talk to Dolores. So Dolores has no idea Mirabel wants to talk to her until Mirabel mistakenly states so to Camilo, who was pretending to be Dolores. Dolores reveals in the song about Bruno that she can hear him, but she doesn't hear Mirabel chasing after Bruno. She doesn't hear Mirabel's call for help. She doesn't hear Mirabel's conversation with Bruno. She doesn't hear her little brother going to find Bruno and offer his room to Bruno to have a vision in. She doesn't hear Bruno having a vision. She doesn't hear Mirabel and Bruno trying to figure out what the vision means. She doesn't hear Bruno trying to convince Mirabel to hug Isabella like the vision wants her to. And yet, she reveals near the end of the movie that she knew Bruno was there the whole time. So the only thing preventing Dolores from hearing everything that happens in the movie is the plot. And that brings me to my second point. Dolores is a tool for the plot to advance. Mirabel realizes that if anyone knows anything about the gift failing, it would be Dolores, because she can hear everything. But Dolores only tells her,
I'm worried about the magic is you. And the rats talking in the walls. Oh, and Luisa. I heard her eye twitching all night.
Now this pushes Mirabel to seek out Luisa, who points her to Bruno's tower, which leads Mirabel to finding Bruno's vision, etc. But that whole segment with Luisa could be cut out, because Dolores is older than Luisa. So she would know everything Luisa knows and more about the night Bruno left, and what the other adults in the family said. She could have told Mirabel all of this, but she couldn't because the plot didn't want her to. Dolores can't comfort her cousin, who is scared about the magic failing, because she, Dolores, hasn't been allowed to hear the magic is failing. She can't confirm that Mirabel is telling the truth. She can't tell anyone else in the family that Abuela is worried about the magic because she was allowed to hear Abuela speaking about it. For the sake of the plot, Dolores says,
"And the rats talking in the walls."
instead of outright telling Mirabel that Bruno is still in the casita. She can't outright reveal that he's there at all. She hints at it a couple times, but never actually says it, even though she should know, if she were allowed to hear Luisa talking to Mirabel, or any of the previous stuff I mentioned, that Mirabel would need to talk to Bruno to figure out what's wrong with the gift. This strips the character of her agency, keeping her confined to what the writers want to happen, despite the fact that they gave her super hearing, which would make her the most knowledgeable character in the movie, and therefore able to answer a lot of questions without other characters having to detour to find out what they need to know. The plot wanted to keep Bruno as a mysterious figure, to keep the audience guessing until his reveal. Who is Bruno? Is he a villain? What happened to make him leave? Because Dolores is bound within the confines of the plot, she is good at keeping secrets, and also can't stop herself from blurting them out when the plot needs her to. So Dolores kept Bruno living within the casita's walls a secret from the time Mirabel was 6 to however old she is now. And yet, the second Dolores overhears Mirabel and her father talking about Bruno's vision, she can't keep her mouth shut. The simple reason why, because the plot needs Dolores to blurt out that Mirabel was in Bruno's vision, and the magic failing is her fault, at the dinner table, leading to panic and certain family members upset with Mirabel, which makes Mirabel reluctant to hug Isabella, which leads to their eventual reconciling, which leads to Abella's and Mirabel's argument, which leads to the casita falling apart and Mirabel believing it's all her fault. Which leads me to my third point: Dolores is made to look like a horrible person. If Dolores was allowed to hear everything, as is her superpower, then she would know how Mirabel feels not having a gift. Dolores should have been able to hear every single time Mirabel's parents comforted her about not having a gift, and yet Dolores carelessly reveals Mirabel didn't get a gift to a bunch of children who had been pestering Mirabel about what her gift was. Dolores offers no comfort, no sympathetic glances. She shows no knowledge at all of having even the faintest idea how Mirabel feels being the only one in the family without a gift. She should know. She should know how revealing Mirabel is in Bruno's vision would affect Mirabel, make the rest of the family, especially Abuela, look at Mirabel in suspicion. But she acts like she doesn't care about any of that, panicking when she finds out the secret to Bruno's vision and disregarding everything Augustine said about keeping it secret. And then there's her knowledge of Bruno. Because the plot wanted to keep Bruno a secret, Dolores stayed silent for at least 6 years and listened while Bruno talked to himself, invented new personalities, relied on the rats for entertainment, and pretended to be dining with the family every night. She stayed silent and aloof while listening to her uncle slowly descend into madness. There's also this scene that affects Dolores' character, and as far as her behavior goes, it's the only scene I've found so far that's not plot related. Dolores has been hopelessly in love with Mariano for years, but he can only see Isabella, and so he never noticed Dolores, and Dolores never spoke up. Mirabel goes out of her way to change this. She points Mariano in Dolores' direction without anyone asking her to, because that's what Mirabel does. She loves her family, and so she goes out of her way to help family members. And Dolores just pops up, as if she still had her super hearing, she hasn't gotten her gift back at this point, and bumps Mirabel out of the scene, telling her,
"Okay, I'll take it from here. Goodbye."
no thank you, no acknowledgement that Mirabel has greatly helped Dolores to finally be seen by the man of her dreams. No, all of Dolores' focus is on Mariano, and she rapid-fire tells him all that she knows about him.
And I'm seizing the moment, so would you wake up and notice me?
This is the first time they talk, and it's because of Mirabel, but Dolores never thanks her. Being finally with Mariano should be a happy ending earned by Dolores' actions in the movie. Had she been more of a help and less of a hindrance, it would have been a payoff rather than a quick tying up of loose ends. Now, there are a couple of different ways Dolores' character could be fixed. Either have her more active in the story, actually helping Mirabel try to figure out what's going on with the candle and why some of family members are having trouble with their gifts. She could have been secretly helping Bruno this whole time, sneaking him food and being the human connection he needed to stop from going insane. Or she could be indifferent, not caring whether or not the magic fails, and not caring about her family. This would be a little hard to write, as Dolores wouldn't care about giving Mirabel answers, but neither would she care about withholding them. She wouldn't keep Bruno's location a secret, but neither would she just be blurting it out. Being indifferent would explain why she would just carelessly reveal Mirabel not getting a gift, but she's not involved with the scene until this point, so why would she speak up? And if she's indifferent, it would make it harder to give her a happy ending with Mariano, as Mirabel would still go out of her way trying to help Dolores, but Dolores, being indifferent, would have a hard time suddenly switching just because the man of her dreams finally notices her. The third option is to make Dolores the villain. You could have her traumatized by the sound she hears and tormented by her inability to block everything out. She spitefully reveals people's secrets. She taunts Isabella about being betrothed to a man she doesn't love. She maliciously goes out of her way to hurt Mirabel's feelings about not getting a gift. She can do all of this while appearing innocent. She hates her gift. She wants the magic to fail, and so she sends Mirabel looking the wrong way for answers, actively trying to stop her cousin from figuring out what's affecting the candle. Now, if she's the villain, how would this affect Bruno? Would Dolores keep Bruno a secret, feeding the hysteria in town that Bruno is the one everyone should fear and trying to scare Mirabel from finding him? Or would she rat Bruno out immediately when he came back to the casita, thereby being the cause that drives him away for good, or being Abuela's spy to keep an ear on Bruno at all times so that he can't leave? This would also change Dolores and Mariano, where Mariano finally noticing Dolores could be what turns her from being evil, or it could be too little too late. There's a lot you could do, but the simplest way, if you want to keep the story close to how it originally is to give Dolores limitations on her power. Make her room soundproof, so that she can't hear Abuela talking or Mirabel. This would also take out Dolores hearing Luisa's eye twitching all night, but this is easily solved by either Dolores hearing Luisa's eye twitching at another time, or Mirabel noticing it at the breakfast table and confronting her sister the same way in the movie. Bruno could hide away in a soundproof room during the day and come out only at night to patch the cracks in the casita and get food. Or Bruno could mask his movements so that it would sound like rats moving and Dolores wouldn't realize it was Bruno. The best way, though, is not to have Dolores have super hearing. It wouldn't change the story giving her a different gift, one that wouldn't traumatize her or drive her insane, or make her seem like a horrible person for not helping out more when she should be hearing what's going on. Well, that's all I have for now. See you in the comments below, and may you all find a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Farewell.